Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. This one's going to be a little bit of a different episode. I actually polled all of you in my community. 91% of you said that you would love to be able to create a product, quit your full-time job, and live off that product. Now, there are a few steps to take before you could, successfully do something like that. But I decided to bring on two people who have a lot of experience with the user and product, and they're going to go ahead and help us figure out how we can best do that. So I think this is going to be really good for junior developers and even mid-level developers that are considering branching off. So like usual, we'll go ahead and start with our intros. Garima, can you go ahead and give us a little introduction?
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Garima, and I actually belong from India. So I completed my bachelor's in information technology back in India, and then I worked with Unilever, mostly in product and project as well for 3 years. Then I came to the US to expand my knowledge horizon, and I did complete my master's in information technology. And then I'm working at a startup called Superworld as a web product lead. So, yes, a bit about Superworld. It's a metaverse that we are trying to create where you can buy and sell NFTs. So we are dealing with virtual real estate and NFT tokens and everything. And there's a lot more coming up. So it's a pretty exciting company and a pretty exciting product. So yeah, that is pretty much a short introduction of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you so much. How about you, Shelby?
Hi, I'm Shelby. I currently lead a design team at DocuSign, but I'll give you a little background. I started out in college with an English degree, so I did nothing related to technology. And one of my first jobs was as a webmaster. So yes, that title did exist and people did have it for a very short period of time. I've been on the .com roller coaster. I've started a financial services company. I've done startup work inside larger companies. So I have a pretty decent perspective on what it takes to come up with an idea and bring it to life and take it out to market. So we'll be talking about that today. Thanks.
I love it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dive in. And, we might talk over each other, but I think this can really be a collaborative experience about coming up with a fairly solid plan. But, what I'm going to do is we'll take turns. But the question that I asked previously was, if you were to quit your company and you were to start build a product and create a company out of it, potentially, how would you go about doing that? Garima, let's start with you.
Sure. So if I were to do that, hopefully I plan to do that in the future, definitely, to start something of my own. But yeah, so I would first start with understanding the real problem that I'm going to solve with the product. So it's not just about like thinking of any idea. That idea should be something that your customers are wanting, or are they willing to pay for it, or will they go to any extent, in order to buy your product or use it. So I think the first step that I'm going to figure out is, how well am I solving the problem with my solution that I'm planning to go and build a product on? Is it something that the customers will be willing to go for? Or is there any substitute that they are using? Or is there any other product that's doing exactly the same thing that my solution is going to do? How is my solution different from what the other products are providing? So a lot of research, understanding the user, what they're expecting, and then understanding how am I going to solve the problem. So a lot of research around there. And once I actually figure out the one main problem, that's the root cause, and then I formulate my solution according to that this is the problem that I'm going to solve, that no other product can do it right now. And then from there, I would start on thinking of the customer segmentation that I want to go for, because there are so many different customer segment currently in the market. So which customer segment do I want to target? What in that customer segment, what is the customer that I want to target? It's like men, women, kids, adults, all the different kinds of categories, which category I want to go for. And then from there, I think once I have all this background work done, I think then I'm going to start with the design and development and everything. So that pretty much is the starting, that how I would go about it.
Okay, perfect. Now, before I ask questions, we're going to hear Shelby's idea.
I have two things that I would do. One is assess my personal appetite for risk. And at what point am I willing to jump out of the security and the safety of health insurance and salary and all the things in order to make this idea work? So that is totally outside of any idea you have. And knowing these things about yourself will help you jump when you're ready and not create a sense of desperation that has you chasing things that are not going to really pan out. That happens a lot. The second thing I would say is I have worked for 3 companies now that are first movers in their space. One of them is GoGo, which put together in-flight Wi-Fi before, what is it? No, everything's great and nobody's happy. So, like the internet's in the sky and the minute it doesn't work, people freak out. I worked for the company that invented that, or made it work at least. I also worked for Morningstar, which is a company that provided transparency into investing information in mutual funds at a time when there really wasn't that kind of transparency and individual investors felt very disempowered. And I also now work for DocuSign, as I mentioned, which was a first mover in electronic signature. And what all 3 of those companies have in common is that the problem you think you're solving is not always the problem you end up solving. And the way that I kind of put this is that, I have 2 kids who are grown now, and the first question they ask is usually not the real question. And so what I would say, extrapolate that to, is the first thing you think you're solving for is not really the thing you're going to end up solving for. And you have to be really open to the idea that you have an idea and a problem you think you're going to solve, but the rest of the world might not see it quite the same way, might not want the same thing, or you might have to do something very different than your original idea. And you have to be really open when you get it out there and you're trying to do your product market fit work, to pivoting like a lot. And at some point it stops feeling like pivoting and it starts feeling like spinning. But eventually things settle down and you can kind of see the forest for the trees. Those are the 2 things that I would say.
Okay, really cool. I like this. I'm going to have fun with this conversation. So we'll open it up now. Anyone can respond. We're going to talk over each other. Happens in all my episodes. So this idea of, like, let's say a software engineer, they have this idea. And, as you work for different companies and you learn, especially startups where you're involved in a little bit more of different roles potentially, or you're at least interacting with different departments more often, you kind of come up with ideas and you start to really understand some of the problems that exist. Like, why did your company even form? Like, what solution was it solving? What is its competitors solving? And it kind of just trains your mind, in my opinion, to start looking and being able to identify problems and understanding the user a little bit more. So in my opinion, that's where I think a lot of software engineers start getting this idea of, one day, maybe I can go ahead and build this and it might gain a user base. I might be able to put a pricing model around it. I might be able to be successful. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just a project that earns me an extra $1,000 a month. But ultimately, when you kind of discover this problem and you kind of have this idea of a solution in your head, how do you take that idea and start figuring out if it's actually a solution for users? If it's actually, Shelby, like you said, the solution that is the correct solution, or is that going to look way different? And how do you figure that out? So how do you really get that market fit and solidify that idea?
Yeah, I call it next best question. That's my game. Okay. What's my next best question that I need to get an answer to in order to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? So I think I have an answer. I draw something real fast. I put it on paper. I have somebody else, like, you just get it out of your head and onto something, anything, and put it in front of some people and answer your next best question. And it will move you forward.
I don't think I quite understand. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was working on a service, an investing service, and we were trying to figure out what the real problem was because we thought we knew what the problem was. We did not. We thought that people were informed enough about investing to understand the idea that if you save money toward a financial goal, you can eventually have the thing that is the goal, right? And the truth of the matter is that people do not connect what they make in their lives and their salary and their pay to anything that is in the future. Like people have a super hard time even making that connection that you're telling me that if I save $100 out of every paycheck, I'll be able to retire. Yeah, right. But that's actually how investing works. And we had to take it all the way back in terms of investing literacy and figure out where are people really starting from and how do we get them to connect their daily behavior with their money to meeting larger goals of things they really want. And what we did was we put paper things in front of people and we had them sort stuff until we kind of got to a model where we could get them to understand what a financial goal really is.
Interesting.
It was like 6 months. It took 6 months to get there.
Okay. Okay, that's a pretty creative way to help or kind of get people's mental process on how they actually can get that vision a little bit more long term. Yeah. I didn't even know that was actually a problem, but it probably is. Huge
problem. And we used behavioral economics, really. That's what we ended up using. We were like, well, how do people make decisions about money?
Okay. How would you, or how have you in the past gone about figuring out market fit and really solidifying your solution, Garima?
So I think the one thing that I always go to is the first thing that I do is put everything down on the paper of what I think the problem is and what I think the solution can be and what the customers would like. So I just put it all on paper and see, okay, these are the problems that I think there is. These are the solutions to those problems. And this is the one solution that is fixing the pain point. And then I go on to talk to a lot of people. My go-to is to talk to as many people as you can in order to get those their ideas, their views and their opinions. As Shelby already mentioned, that what you think is the problem and solution, that might not be the case. Things can be 180-degree different than what you are thinking. So it's very, very important to understand the type of customer you're trying to target in order to get your product for market, for the product market fit. You need to understand, is the problem what you are thinking is what the customer is also thinking about. So doing the user interviews depending on the hypothesis that you have planned in your head and just check marking it. Okay, this hypothesis is something that the user agrees with. So, okay, let's go deep down further. Let's go and ask more questions on this category of hypothesis. There might be one category of hypothesis that user doesn't even talk about, and they'll be okay, I thought it was a problem, but actually the user doesn't find it to be the problem. So then you just cross that out, and then you go again further, asking as many questions why and what and all questions different. I think one thing that I learned during my course of academics and also during my course of work is to ask why as many times as you can, because when you keep on, okay, why are you doing this? Okay, why do you need this? Why did you click on that? And why did you think you needed to click on that? Going this why, unveiling the layer and layer by layer, I think then you come to that root cause of problem that the user also didn't know it was there. But when you kind of ask question, then he or she, they tend to think about it. Okay, I didn't even think that it was there in my head. That's why I went on thinking in this direction. So that pretty much is very, very helpful. So that is something that I always keep in mind, take as many user interviews as you can, ask as many questions as you can, because you are selling a product to them. You need to understand each and everything that they are expecting, or what's the reason they use your product or they will be using the product. So
It sounds like there's a huge benefit, even before you start solidifying what that product is going to be, just getting that idea out there and hearing people's perspectives, asking maybe what they think about the problem. Do they think the problem even exists? What do they think about your solution? And digging into that a bit more. I like this idea of just continuing to ask why, because, you know, some people just give answers without thinking about it, but it probably comes from a lot of experience they've had, and asking why like really helps them analyze that a bit more.
Yeah, sometimes like us also, you would just go and do something on a website, but you will not like stop and think like, why did I just go and do that? It's just etched in your brain. You have to like click on that link, but you don't know why you're doing that. So yeah, I think it's very helpful to understand like, well, what exactly, why is the user doing what they are doing? And it's helpful to keep probing on that question and keep trying to get an answer out of them. It can become, you know, not all users will agree to like kind of go through that, the whole process, because yeah, all these extensive user interviews that you do, you have to get those kind of users who are really, really into this, and they are willing to give you that time of the day, and they are willing to, you know, help you with a product that would be beneficial to a lot of customers like that. So
yeah, if you have a trusted group of people you can go to a lot, it's a really good thing. Like most of my friends know when I get a new job because I start asking them like questions. And what I would also say is, in design research, we have this thing called ethnography, which is actually an anthropological study method. And it's what you do. Sorry, there are animals in the room. Sorry. What you do is you just watch people in their environment doing a thing. And the reason you do that is because you through observing many people doing the same set of things, like going through a checkout line, filling a prescription at Walgreens, and you just watch people do it 100 times, you start to just kind of witness what they're doing. And you start to kind of make mental notes about, well, that person did this and this person, I wonder what, and then you start to see patterns. And the patterns really help you and back up your thinking, because you're like, wait, there were like 15 people who like stood there and rolled their eyes and stomped their foot and like then they argued with the pharmacist, like, why is that? You know, so that's one of the tools we use. And what it helps us with is backing out of our own ego and backing out of our own ideas and assumptions and biases about what's happening in front of us. And it forces us to just watch and witness.
You know, that's really interesting, because I remember at my second company, UX and product sharing with me that they would go out into the field, and basically, so it was an educational product, and they would kind of observe classrooms and try to pick up patterns and behavior there. And they would like go out into the field to observe and just document, because like you said, sometimes your egos might influence your perspective, and you need to see it across many, many, many people, gather that data, and maybe discover patterns that your ego didn't allow you to discover before. That's really interesting. So let's think about it from like a developer who probably, and maybe this isn't really efficient, but a developer who probably works a lot, and they are thinking about, okay, well, you know, I want to gather user feedback around my idea, but, you know, I feel like in the UX and product world, a lot of you like really, you collaborate really well, and you talk with each other, and you ping ideas. With a developer, I would say most developers are very technically focused, and they might not have that perspective of observing users, of like even having the idea of like reaching out and getting tons of other perspectives. They just build, they dive right into the code. So and that's a habit I had for a long time. So I think kind of what you're saying is, you know, especially before you build a product, you need to start solidifying your idea based on user feedback, user patterns that you're observing. Now with the developer that might be building, let's say like an online app, such as, you know what, I'm going to use my idea. Do both of you know what live streaming is? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know what Twitch is? Twitch.tv?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe like this app was that I want to build. I wanted there's this segment of people that don't make a lot of money on Twitch that are trying to become not software engineers. They're trying to become partners on Twitch, where the subscriptions are going to give you a much higher portion. You're able to get a lot more income from that and eventually make it a full-time position. Now, the bridge from like starting on Twitch to becoming a partner and getting all of those users when there's very little discovery on Twitch, there's a problem. A lot of people struggle to become a partner. What I wanted to do was build an app that analyzed as much as I possibly could to figure out how can I give you actionable feedback on the way you are conducting your content and growing your channel to reach that partner status, to reach a much higher viewership. Now, I didn't know a lot of people that also watch Twitch. Like, none of my friends in real life, they don't watch Twitch. So like all these people that watch Twitch, like they're all kind of people online. And I don't know a whole lot of people, but when I don't really know a lot of people, and I don't necessarily right away have this user base that I can dig into and ask tons of questions, how do I start figuring out if the tool that I'm trying to build is a solution that people want? Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
So yeah, so as a developer, if that I totally understand, getting that user behavior analysis done and getting the set of users to answer your questions, or spending that much time in doing that much research might not be the optimal way that developers kind of function, because I've been a developer and I know how things work, how the mind works, because when I first started working, I was also like tech, and I didn't have that much of business sense to go with. But then later on with my work, I really understood that technology plays an important role, but at the end of it, it's all about business, what you're generating and what you are serving to the users. So in this case, what the developers can do, because they are so quick in their coding, so whatever idea they have, this is just I'm just thinking out loud for this one. So whatever idea that they have, what they can do is kind of create a prototype version for it, what they want to do, and just send it out to the friends and just see how people are reacting to it, and or just ask one or two friends to just go through the whole solution that they have designed, sit beside them and just analyze what they're doing. Don't help them, don't tell them what it is, how they need to go about to the website, which button to click, what they need to do. Just don't tell them anything. Just tell them, okay, this is the product, this is a new thing, I just want you to figure out your way and see if you like this. And then you would see that behavior. Okay, they might be a little struggling to find some button. They might not be understanding something. They would understand instantly. They will just click and they will see, and then everything. So understanding and analyzing, even if you sit and analyze that usability test being done on even 2 or 3 of your friends with that solution, I think that would also help to understand, okay, this is kind of where I'm struggling in my product. So that is from the product per se in terms of features and everything. But at the end, you can just, if just ask them, did you like it? And did you understand what the product was? Or did you understand why it's required? And then see what they're answering. You will get to know at least by one answer. If they just said, okay, this product was good, but I didn't understand, why do I need it? And then you kind of start questioning, okay, if a person is not understanding why I need it, then there's something that is not very clear from your product. So maybe then starting out from there might help, kind of going in the opposite direction, instead of doing the user research first and then kind of building a product, the perfect product, what the users want. As a developer, it would be easier for you to just build a small prototype and see how the user's reacting to it, and then kind of do it. So that's just an idea, and I know it's not 100% a perfect answer, but I think this is one of the options that they can opt for if they don't want to spend a lot of time researching first.
I think I would figure out how to talk to people at Twitch. And I would try to figure out how to reach people who are on Twitch and just ask them, hey, I wanted to run something by you real quick. I have trouble with this. Do you have trouble with this? There's got to be a chat function in Twitch somewhere, right? There's got to be. Or somewhere you can recruit people and just make it a conversation. That's how I would do it, because I'd want to just hear in their words what they do to be found on Twitch. Like, what are you doing? I'm not having any luck. What do you do? If you can. I mean, if it's not competitive, you know, people get a little weird.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna dive into Shelby and then yours, Grima. So if it's not this, if it's not a product where you can go and publicly observe something that's going to help you really discover the problem that people are having, Shelby, like I kind of introduced an online product where you can't just go, you know, discover how people's streaming setups are and like everything they do to like try to grow on Twitch. It's all online. And so you're suggesting like, okay, just reach out. Try to reach out to these other streamers that are having this problem. And before you even introduce your problem, ask like how they, or before you even introduce your solution, ask how they solved the problem already. That's interesting. Okay. And Grima, yeah, I really like the idea of, so one thing, I'm trying to solidify this. One thing a lot of developers have a lot of trouble with is UX just in general. And getting someone, so a lot of us maybe are too shy to even reach out to Twitch users, which I would encourage you to really do that. But you're kind of saying like, start with your friends, start with people that you know, and just try to get them in front of your product. Because sometimes you deliver the solution, especially maybe on the back end, it really solves it in a way that I mean, it's a good solution that people will want, but sometimes like the usability of it and maybe even like a really poor landing page can hide what it's really doing. They don't even understand like what they're clicking, what they're interacting with. I like the idea of like getting them to just asking like really, really simple and basic questions to get a feel for like maybe how frustrating that product is to try to take a step and end up somewhere. Like how frustrating was that experience and where did they really struggle? So I think it kind of feels like you're leaning towards, you know, like an MVP, right? You're not trying to build out a full-fledged product. You're really trying to build out or at least solidify a really basic solution and jump into user feedback as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So with an MVP specifically, like it's supposed to be minimal. It's supposed to be really minimal. You're not tacking on tons of features that you think are going to be really cool solutions until you get all that user feedback. Maybe this is too generic of a question to ask, but like, how do you figure out what is enough and what is too much for an MVP that you build?
In UX, we have this minimum desirable product thing that we kind of like float around with one another. It's not like, it's kind of on the down low because we don't say it very often because people are so excited about MVPs. The problem with MVP, a lot of MVP thinking is that you focus on the minimum and not the viable. So you need to think about what's viable. Like what is really going to get out there, you can ship it and people will use it and it gets things done and it makes you money. Like that's what viable means. Minimum means like, what's the least I can do, right? What's the bare minimum? And too often the bare minimum has no viability and nobody wants it either because it's too hard to use. It doesn't take the right series of steps. It doesn't take you far enough in a journey or something like that. It solves this problem, but not this giant one that surrounds it, right? You see that all the time with healthcare innovation, right? So you see like people putting out poster after poster after poster about hand washing or doctor visits or how to follow up or how to adhere to medication, but they're just posters on the wall because they're trying to put a Band-Aid on the process. It doesn't address the whole problem. Too often a minimum viable product does that. It takes like this tiny piece of the problem and it doesn't really solve it very well. So focus on the viable is what I would say.
Would you, that's interesting. Would you say you lean more towards, okay, so you're not really saying broaden your solution, but just get to the root of the problem and solve that? Find
the real problem. Because like you may be having a problem and you think everyone has this problem, but that is probably not the case. And you have to identify what it really is. And that means talking to people in whatever way is comfortable. I know it's weird right now to talk to people. And I know that like I know I don't seem like I'm an introvert, but I totally am. I will leave this conversation and need to rest. But like, I know when I am stuck and I know when I don't have the answer.
Okay. So it's very hard without a specific problem and a specific solution to identify what an MVP would look like. And I don't think we have enough time to dive into an example of that. But, you know, it really sounds like we're kind of just like the focus really is on user feedback. So I think I kind of want to solidify this for developers because you know, it's a lot of really good information, but I know a lot of developers that will jump to a solution and build too early. So I think the emphasis is like really talk to those users, figure out if it's a good solution. But I think sometimes developers attach to one problem and one solution, and they really attach to it. And it's hard for them to expand their horizons on what they can build. Like developers, like you can build almost anything that you want. Now, a lot of people have trouble coming up with ideas, brainstorming solutions, identifying problems that exist in the world. So this is a really, really hard problem. This isn't just for like, you know, developers that have been in the industry for a while, but like, let's even think about aspiring developers that they are trying to build their skills, but they have no idea what to build. This idea, like every time I say, what problems exist in your life, maybe in your old industry, how could you solve them through a technical solution? Like, that, I think that's a really good train of thoughts, but they're not really able to connect that idea, and like they're not really able to identify the problems in their old industry or provide a solution. So how can people really brainstorm and train their mind to start identifying these problems so they can come up with solutions?
I have a thing I say to designers who do the same thing. Never marry your ideas, just date them. Say it all the time. Yeah. You married your idea. Again, stop it. Just date it.
Yeah, one of my professors used to say, always kill your darlings. Like, it's the same way. Don't marry your ideas. So it's like the same way, you know. All the product people will tell you the same thing, that the first idea that you get, that is never gonna be 100% what you're gonna build. It's always gonna be pivot, and then later on you'll realize you're going in some other direction. Very few ideas are like you got it right in the first time. So
right.
Yeah.
I like that mindset.
So. There's only one Steve Jobs. Seriously.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah,
even him is not. It doesn't exist that much anymore. You know.
I think. So I love the idea of not being completely attached to your idea, but a lot of people are attached because they have no other ideas. How do you train your mind to start identifying those problems that exist in the world and brainstorming solutions? Do either of you have any processes to be able to come up with project ideas?
Oh yeah. I don't want to talk first though. I feel like I'm talking.
No, Shelby, go ahead.
I tell my team members, do the opposite. Play opposite day. Take the thing you made and decide or pretend the opposite is true. Or start from the other end. Or just start from some different vantage point. That's how I get them to like back out of a one idea solution.
Do you feel like that gives them or propels them into another idea?
Not always. Sometimes I have to like help, like by asking harder and harder why questions, you know, like it's, you know, well, why do you think that? Well, what are your assumptions behind that? You have to pull apart all the assumptions and biases and baggage that people bring, because we all bring our own experiences. And a designer's job is to build something that works for everyone. So, you know, you're not everyone. So let's like start there. That's kind of how I try to work through that conversation.
Okay. What about you? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, so I think what they can do is start preparing like a list is like what their solution can really do. So I think that list will be huge because it's their own idea and they think like their solution can, achieve whatever they have planned to. But then have a list saying what your solution cannot do. So, just start thinking about what cannot be done using your product. And then once you start divulging into that process, like, okay, my solution cannot do this, my solution cannot do that, then kind of, this will help them to kind of think from all the perspective, like what they need to change, what they need to keep, what they need to just let it go. So I think maybe this can help them to kind of not be like, go blindly thinking that my solution can, solve everything, because they are themselves creating points that they know that their solution cannot solve. So,
yeah. What you say no to is as important as what you say yes to.
Yeah.
I wonder, and so maybe this is the developer in me. I feel like what you're responding with is basically sharing how to detach from your project idea. You had mentioned building lists, but maybe I'm just missing it. I guess I don't fully understand how I can start identifying other problems so I can come up with other project ideas.
So supposedly you have created like the app that you were talking about, that your app would help people on Twitch to kind of get themselves noticed and stuff. So that is something that your solution is doing. What is something your solution is not doing, right? So when you start thinking in that direction, then you might get some other ideas. Okay, this solution is maybe just covering the like 2 out of 5 aspects that I want my solution to cover. How about if I go in this direction? This will cover like 4 out of 5 aspects that I want to go into. Then you start thinking from all the different perspectives, and then your mind starts wondering, okay, this was plan A. Let me see, okay, if I like tweak this solution a bit, instead of going for like, supposedly, instead of going for a web application, how about I go for a mobile application? How about like, I add this feature in it? And that's how you start, like, from plan A, you keep on adding, tweaking, removing stuff, and then you reach to like plan Z. And that is the product that is gonna help you achieve like 5 out of 5 aspects of the solution that you plan to achieve. So that is something that I feel that can go.
Yeah, I think like I ask people, then what? Then what? Then what? And so what? A lot. So what? The so whatness of a thing. Like, what's it going to get the person on the other side? How does this fit into their life? So what? And then what? And then what? Because it kind of pushes you past the boundaries of your one idea into the space of like, okay, well, what about how people are arriving and what are they leaving with? Like with this idea for Twitch, what I would want to know is, so are you just delivering data then they make some kind of decision with, or are you trying to facilitate a different kind of decision for them? Will you give them advice for what to do, and how will you deliver that advice? Those are the kinds of follow-up questions I would ask, just to kind of figure out what is the continuum of this particular product and how does it fit into the world of its audience.
Okay. So I can tell you for certain, both of you've given me a lot to think about, and the way that you are thinking about a lot of these things, and kind of basically sharing your discovery process of what this product, this MVP, is going to turn into. I don't think like that. I really don't. Oh. And no, I mean, like, kudos to you. This is why I brought you on, because I think a lot of developers, when they don't really know how to, once they have an idea, they're so tied to a solution, they don't really know how to expand that into a different idea. They don't know how to like really help identify the problem that really exists that's a little bit different. So I think the more questions I ask about this, I think it helps me think about it in a different way. Man, UX and product is hard.
Yeah, so one thing that one of my multiple of my friends are developers, and yeah, so this is something that he shared with me, that being when he was like doing all the development work, like core technical, he didn't really think about how his technical developments are actually helping the business or helping the users, and then when he started working in Unilever is mostly like business oriented, so even though you are a developer, you would be given the projects where you will be forced to think about the business outcomes. And through this experience, he always like shares with me, like this experience really taught him as a developer to how to think more about from the business point of view, like whatever you're building, how is it helping the business, like asking the manager, like, okay, I'm building this, how it's going to help the business, how it's going to help the company, what impact will this project bring, and asking these questions, it really helped him to think from multiple different perspectives. Okay, maybe if this is the reason you are asking me to build this, how about we build this, this will help you to achieve the business more, like profit or whatever the goal is. And that's how he started his journey, and he is like still a developer, but his sense of business is really like helped him to focus on just going beyond just the development part of it. So I think this is something that I've learned, like how developers think in the beginning, and they really need to just, even like if they don't want to talk to the user, nothing, even if they are in their job, they should at least talk to the manager or whoever their lead is just once, like whatever they are doing, how is it helping the company, what impact is it creating? And that, I think that would really be very motivating for them, that if whatever they have designed is creating like a big impact, it will help them to kind of think in the direction, okay, I created this and this is what the users got benefited with. So maybe if I do this, how will it impact the user, or how will my users feel different about it? So I think this will definitely help them to kind of think and ponder over this question, what impact they're making. Because I think at the end of the day, be it in people in any profession, they want to create an impact with the work that they are doing. And given that at the end of the horizon, I think that is something that would really help them to think in different direction and think from that perspective of how they can help users or business wherever they're working.
Yeah, and I would also add that this is what we're talking about is uncomfortable, right? It is. I would tell you that I work with designers all the time who are like, but I came up with the thing that this is the thing, and I just say, well, is it though? Let's talk about it a little more. And I push people into this really uncomfortable place, and it's part of the process. I don't know if you've ever seen the creative process. It's like there's this like line of spaghetti, and then it turns into this huge knot, it zigzags, and then it comes back out the other side. And that is the process is this, like you're uncovering as much about yourself as you are about your idea or other people, and that's actually super uncomfortable for a lot of, for me. I mean, I'm sure that when I first started doing this, I was super uncomfortable. What I have learned over time is that if the solution comes to me too super easily, like it just flows out of me like water, I have not thought enough. That is my cue for, this is too easy. This is too easy. So I have to go back and be uncomfortable again.
That's interesting. It almost feels like, so of course, when you start focusing, this is why I love working at startups, like focusing, you're able to get a more transparency into a lot of the business objectives and the users behind the business. But it almost, with the focus on business objectives, it almost sounds like you are spending a lot of time trying to invalidate your idea. Like a lot of time, like really challenging it, poking holes in it. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, because like how heartbreaking is it to invest like a year of your life in something and then have it?
You have to, otherwise, like if you don't do enough and if you put your time, effort, money, everything, and then it fails, it's gonna hurt a lot more. So it's better to kind of like fail multiple times before like delivering the final product so that that's successful. You have to kind of like do that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where you go back to the risk.
Yeah, it's like for developers, they have to, when they code, they have to test it from all the different sides so that when it's merged to production, it doesn't fail. So that's the same thing when you think of a product. You have to test from all the different sides so that your idea doesn't fail in production.
That's actually a great analogy. That's a perfect analogy.
Thank you. I think my development thought process is also kicking in.
I really like that. So I'm thinking. There's a lot for me to think about. So I'm kind of going to solidify some thoughts, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So going back, sometimes my episodes turn into something a little bit different than I thought they would. But I think, what I've really learned is I am someone that comes up with a lot of ideas easily, but I've done that for so many years. When I was 18, I started my own company, and from there I just kept trying out ideas. Now I never did user research, and all my ideas have pretty much failed, right? But it gave me a lot of experience, and so I learned a lot through failure. But one thing I learned, because when I quit my company to basically start my own company now, I talked to thousands of developers before I decided to take this journey. And I spent so much time doing this, but it really sounds like whatever you come up with, you need to validate that. You need to poke holes in it. And there's no other way to do that besides getting user feedback. You have to talk to users. So a lot of developers have this idea of, I'm going to build a product and, I'm going to see what users use this. And you're saying, hold up, just wait a second. Let's go ahead and introduce, or let's go ahead and explore the problem that your product is even trying to solve. See if people even care about solving it. See if they even identify it as a problem, and listen to their solutions, especially before you build this thing out. So you're basically telling developers, wait. Don't just dive into the code right away. That's the very first step.
Yes. Slow down to speed up is how I describe it. And if you're doing it for fun, have at it, but if you want to do it for money, slow down to speed yourself up.
Yeah, I think along with this, user get interviews and everything, that's the first and major thing that you need to do. But I think along with that, you should also know the competition landscape. The idea that you are kind of trying to build into a product. What other products are there? What all substitutes are there? What are the people currently using? If your product is not in the market, what is the customer using right now? Does it have any pros and cons? Does the user like it, what they're using, or they don't? What is something that they don't like? I think when you start probing in that direction, learning from your competitive landscape, where your product sits, and is it a new product, new market? It's old product, new market, and it's when you kind of identify your product where it's gonna sit, and then you kind of identify what is the current competition offering to your the users, what is your solution gonna offer, then you get kind of upper hand in when you do all those research. Plus, when you add the customer interviews to that, then I think you get an upper hand of actually figuring out what you need to make and what you need to build. So that's a bulletproof casing for your ideas. So not 100% of the time, but I think that's a way to kind of bulletproofing your idea that it would definitely lead you to some success.
Yeah. You'll still pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. Pivoting is you cannot avoid it.
Yeah, it will be a little less drastic because you'll kind of the thing is that I guess the better your antennae, the easier it is to find a signal, right? You got one antenna for the business, one antenna for the user, and you're tuning, Mm-hmm. If you have no antenna, you're just whoa, when you're a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you don't know about your competition landscape, it might happen. So you're offering all the things that they are also offering, and then you might get to know that later, and then you'll be you have to do the whole rework again. Yeah. You don't want to do that.
So it almost sounds like you're really taking advantage of what the competition already offers based on maybe even user reviews of things people are asking for that they still don't offer.
You absolutely should.
Absolutely.
Absolutely should.
Yeah, sit on, if you're like doing some e-commerce product that like you want to sit on Amazon, just go through all the user reviews that you have gotten, just search everything that users have to say, and they would really open up. Like all the reviews, yeah, they would just go like all the like blog posts and stuff. Like if you'd go and research about it, they just talk about it. If they don't like it, they will simply tell in very basic terms, I don't like it. It was not good. And then you can just reach out to them from there and ask like, why didn't you like it? Or, you know, so that would definitely help you to understand a lot about, you know, where's the problem lying? You know, you might offer the customer something better than what their competitions are offering, no matter how costly they are or how cheap they are. Doesn't matter if what you are offering is what they have been looking for.
Amazon reviews are a treasure trove of quality.
Yeah.
And some very funny people, actually.
Garima, you had mentioned, you were talking about like the competition. So a lot of developers feel like, why should I build my idea? There are probably 100 other ideas like that out there. And so that very quickly, I'm telling you, that crushes developers' dreams very quickly. But what you're kind of saying is, you're not really treating, you didn't even mention the idea of like a market being oversaturated or anything. You're like, first, just look at what's out there and look at what is still missing from the features of some of these bigger competitors. Maybe you could focus on these features where it's not worth their time to even build them. But maybe that gives a little bit of encouragement. But how do developers figure out if, you know, their idea, their solution doesn't really have a lot of room in the market, like the market's oversaturated?
I will tell you that in 1998, when I was working for About.com, I had to manage the content for the children's, homework, and the adult channels, which are not the same. And COPA was passed, which is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act. And I remember thinking, you know what would be great? Wallets. What if you could give your kid an online wallet and you give them a bunch of money and it's their allowance and you specify which websites they can buy things from, and you could just like give them the experience of online shopping and teach them about it. And then I was like, oh, the technology's really not there yet. And then poof, and guess what we have now? We have wallets. You know? So sometimes it's just not the right time, and sometimes your idea's already been there, done that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep exploring, because there's always something there. Like, the question is, do you want to go for it? And sometimes it's a moonshot, like the internet in a plane.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. That's interesting. I'm sorry your wallet idea didn't get pushed out at the time.
It was never, like, there's no way.
No.
In 1998, that was ever going to happen.
No, probably not. How do so obviously with these ideas, if you're going to make anything out of it, you're going to quit your position, you're going to have to earn money from it. How do you figure out how much to charge your customers?
More competitive research, I would say. And I would, you have to test market things. You have to charge one amount, you have to find the price point sometimes. You do your best to find it ahead of time. And I would also say, do not offer it for free unless you intend to keep giving it out for free. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times can teach you that lesson.
Really?
The Wall Street Journal, when they went online, charged for subscriptions immediately. The New York Times did not. And they had a heck of a time converting people into a paid model.
Interesting. Okay. So what about this idea of free tiers where you get a limited set of features?
You can do that, but finding that line takes some time too, and you just have to be patient with which set of features compels the upgrade, I guess.
Would you push for offering way less features for the free tier, or just really leaning on pricing a little bit higher? Because it sounds like the closer it is to free, the harder it is to move to charge more, but the opposite way might be a little bit easier, charging more.
Yeah, and you have to have a really clear sense of the value of the features. right? You have to really know, like, if people really, really want this, and once they're exposed to a tiny little taste of what it is, they're totally going to upgrade. Like, you really have to understand the appetite for each feature that you're trying to put in those buckets.
Can you ask users how much they would pay for a group of features, or ask, like, what features would you need? Like, how would this need to solve your problem for you to pay $100 a month?
Yeah, I guess if you just ask the users like what features you would like they would need, you're gonna be flooded with like tons and tons of features, and then you wouldn't know from where to start. So never ask your users what features they would want. Just give them options like which feature do you feel is the best, and let them choose. And let them rate it. Okay, this is, if you want to go that route to, check from users. I think that would be something that you can take like as an alternative, but never go and ask anyone what features they would want, because you will be flooded. You will like see some websites like there is a NFT website called Rarible. In there, they have this another section community where people keep putting up, okay, what if you add this feature, what if you add that feature, and they have like tons of features that the users think that would be making the website very better. But there are some of them they have implemented, some of them are still just sitting there as suggestions. So that's what it is. Like, you don't want to get overcrowded with these things. And then thinking of like right now, I feel the free versions versus paid version, the best, like safest way to go for a freemium model. Like, you give them, you have features like, as like Shelby already mentioned, you have to kind of understand which features they would go for like free of cost, which features are really like that beneficial, or that kind of where they would pay. And then you kind of divide those features as like, you give people, allow them to try it for like, maybe give them a trial period, or keep like a freemium model where you have like few features for free, and people who have the subscription, then you go for like the premium features, like what Spotify does, right? In the beginning, they have that you can listen to all the songs you want to for free, but you will get ads. You don't want ads, you go buy premium. And that's how like some people in the beginning, they started, okay, ads are okay, 1 or 2 ads, but then they increase the frequency of ads. And now YouTube is doing the same thing. YouTube Music is doing the same thing. They are increasing the frequency of ads. So after a point of time, you're like, I don't want to listen to like 1 minute of ad when I'm in the middle of the music, and I'm playing some music from Spotify, and then in the middle of the party, I'm listening to some ads. I don't want to do that. So they switch to premium model. And that's the same thing. That's the policy that these online products are kind of going for. They will allow you to use it for free, but then they will create such conditions that you'll be like, it's better to just pay and then remain hassle free.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. We call it dark UX. And like, how many buttons do you have to push to get people to go over? What's the change threshold? That's really what we're talking about. What is the threshold of behavior or features or what have you that gets people to do a thing you want them to do, or stop doing a thing you don't want them to do?
Yeah. So it's all about like, you create such scenarios in your app without the user knowing it, that the user will do exactly what you're expecting them to do. That's like kind of like a trick, these products. And I'm saying from a user's perspective as well, because I have seen this happening. I went for Spotify free, and then I was so annoyed with the ads because they started the frequency. Like, I used to like, I'm listening to a song, and in the middle of the song, I'm getting like an ad, and I'm like, I don't want to go ahead and do that. Let's just switch it to premium. So yeah, that is pretty much.
Okay. So it sounds like there's some value in kind of making their experience less optimal personally. You're not really talking about like keeping the features minimal. You're talking about kind of annoying them until they pay.
You can do, I personally think you get an emotional bank account with a customer or an end user. And the more you deduct from that account, the less tolerant they're going to be of you as of your product and whatever it is you're trying to do. And then the second they have an alternative, they will do something else.
Yeah.
if you deduct too much out of that emotional bank account that is about loyalty, you know.
Yeah, so these can work for products which are like they are the king of the market. You cannot replace Spotify with something else, because Spotify, the collection, the variant that they have with their music list, it's like at par. You will not get that collection anywhere else. So that's what they do. So if Netflix does that, if Netflix brings in the advertisement, Netflix is going to go down, because there are so many online streaming platforms. People are going to switch from Netflix. So that's why Netflix is not bringing advertisements at any cost. So
it's better for them than their model.
Yeah. So it depends. It depends. Like if you are new to the market, give people something, and you see there's a deficit in the market. Like not all the if you like, for an example, Spotify free is ad plus music. What if you create like Spotify like app but without any ad, and you give it for free? People are going to use your product if they see that the level of suggestion, the playlist is similar to what they can have it on Spotify. They will simply switch from Spotify to your platform. That will not, even majority of them would definitely shift. So that's pretty much, you have to kind of, it's like a very market dependent situation. You have to study your market. It's like before deciding a cost, you have to see what your competition is asking for people, and are people happy paying that much amount? Honestly, I would be happy paying $4.99 per month for Spotify instead of paying like $10 per month for Spotify, just for no ads. So yeah, that's something.
Yeah, there's social media. Think about that as a model too, right? Nobody pays for social media because we're the product, right?
Yeah.
But every time a new one comes out, it has this jump in feature set, right? And then every other platform cascades the feature in, like Snapchat features going through, TikTok,
Then Instagram is there now with Reels, though it's like same as TikTok.
Yeah, you can be replaced is really what we're saying. So the quality of what you put out there really has to be pretty good to get a foothold and to maintain it. And pricing is one way, that one of the levers you have as a business owner to manipulate, like to basically manage the situation, right? It's one of your best levers.
Yeah. So it's like very important. If like going in the price is thing, like if it's a new product, and if the market is not saturated, it's like a new product completely in the market, then you have that leverage of putting up a cost, and people will pay for it because there is no other substitute for them, right? And you are the one who's like offering everything that they wanted. But if there are currently products in the market, and if you are then making it like pricey, then that is not like a successful revenue model for your product. You would because it's a new product and there are already competition is already out there. So you should always let people check out the features, whatever you have to give, and have like if you want to make it like a pricing model, then always give them like a trial, or keep it like separate, like free model, subscription model. I think that's like the safest way to go if you're that confident in your product that people will pay. With all your user research that you have done in the past, with all the market study you have done, people are going to pay. Then categorize it for the features people will pay, for the features people won't, because they already are having the same features on other platform without paying any money.
Yeah, I would say look at Spotify, look at Notion, Squarespace, like for those kinds of models.
This is so much information, and it's all really valuable. I can tell you I'm gonna I watch every episode again, but I know I'm gonna get so many good nuggets that I probably passed way over. So with everything that you're describing, there's so much thought and time that goes into like really let's just simplify it as much as I can, coming up with the perfect idea that will create a sustainable revenue and grow and, do well in the market. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. And the more I listen, it feels like the portion of time that you're investing into like really validating this, like with a lot of developers, like a lot of us can pull up apps really quickly and build like really kind of like decent functional and looking features really quickly. It feels like there's so much more time that for me, if I were to build out a product, I'm going to be spending a lot of time with this research and validating. When you come up with like a new feature for your business, I know you're going to have like different size developer teams, but I'm kind of curious, like, can you kind of deliver an estimated proportion of time that like user experience, product and design, like work through a lot of this versus the amount of time it takes to build that out?
I think it was Einstein who said, if you give me 60 minutes to solve a problem, I want 55 to define it and 5 to solve it. That's pretty much how it works. I would say, depending on the scale and size of the thing you're trying to do, I would really give yourself a 6-month runway to really uncover what you should be doing. And 6 months of constant activity, not like I'll put something out there and see what happens. More like 6 months of structured things you're going to do in order to uncover, the truth you need, right? And that is going to, I think the more you can set up groups of people you can routinely talk to, and the more you can understand your product and your market and the competitive landscape going in, the easier it will be to get through that process. And if you need to spin up a prototype to validate an idea, if that's your deliverable, that's the thing you most, like, that's how you articulate your ideas to the world, do it. Just don't spend a ton of time on it. Don't spend a ton of time on it.
Yeah, I think that would definitely help. Like, if you don't want to like just do research, being a developer, you're well capable of like just getting like a quick prototype of whatever idea you have in mind, and then have like a group of people test it out and see like, what you're thinking about, because they'll have something to kind of like, look to and work on it. And then they can give you like opinions about what they feel about the idea and whatever it is. So I think that would also help you if the research part gets like a bit boring for the developers and they just want to like, see something in front of them. So
I can tell you it's very personally hard for me to do research for that long and not have something I can play around with.
I completely understand. That's why I said just build something and start research with that. Otherwise, doing that level of research, it's not everyone is open to do that. And, that's why a lot of ideas kind of like fail, because then you have not put enough amount of research that you should have. And then you just like jumped into the solution. It's very human in nature that you will just jump to a solution and jump to an idea and just, okay, let's do this. But then when you sit back and kind of think from all the different like point of view, then you kind of see, okay, your ideas have like a lot of loopholes and you have to like work on it and understand what exactly matters and what doesn't. So
I think one tiny creative idea you might want to tell people about is the idea of working with boot camps, and specifically working with the designers in boot camps, because there are a fair number of them that try to solve real problems in the real world. And if you bring, as a developer, if you have an idea, I don't really know how they run those partnerships, but I know they have them because I mentor designers who are in those programs. So it's one way to kind of get a designer to help you, potentially a designer in training who might help you with some of the legwork. They're not experienced, but it might be helpful.
Yeah. Along with this bootcamp, you also have like business competitions. So if you have an idea that you want to just test waters and see if your idea is something worth going for, just participate in one of those competitions. And then that competition would really give you like, because there will be teams and there will be like from pure business to pure development to some people from the product background, and the way they come up with their idea, it will give you a lot of exposure of how and in which direction you should be thinking from, for your ideas. And that could be like one of the starting points. And then you go, and once you are done, that this is the idea you want to go ahead with, go ahead in the bootcamp, see how your idea would look like from the design perspective, and then kind of like move forward. So these steps you can take for initial.
Okay. Again, there's so much good information on this. I'm processing it right now. So Okay. Definitely don't want to go over. That first of all, I didn't know about the boot camp thing. I might actually try that for a product that I've been thinking. That is a great idea, and I'm willing to put money down on it. That's really interesting. And just a quick question, Garima, these business competitions, are they focused on like people trying to win to get like investment money, or like what's the purpose?
So there are different types. I'm not like, I don't like have the list of the names, but there are different. If you're already like there's like investment oriented, and then they are like just you wanna see like normal business competitions where you just like, who's the winner? Okay, this idea is something that you wanna go ahead with, and then you get a team to work with and kind of develop that idea if you like it. So something of that sort. I think you will find the different mostly on the university level you have it of these kinds of competitions. So maybe you might want to like research more and see what all they're existing.
Okay.
I know this has to be true in other cities. In Chicago, we have some hackathons that run regularly, and people just show up, and then they get in a room and they all talk and work on something. I know, and the good thing about the good thing is nobody's there to try to poach your idea or buy it from you. Bad thing is that you don't control anybody who comes to those things, so you don't really know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
that's a good suggestion. Okay, I want to solidify my thoughts and we'll wrap this up. I originally started this video. I remember scheduling this video because I wanted to give aspiring developers a perspective on how they could think a little bit differently that might make them stand out, because I know a lot of them eventually would like to build an app and they just don't have the confidence to do so. What I basically did, I kind of just kept asking questions, not in order, clearly, but I just asked tons of questions. The more, after like each of your responses, to get a better feel for like things that were kind of in the back of my mind. So all this information that you shared, it really helped me. First of all, I don't think it's for aspiring developers. I think this is a level of depth that I would encourage aspiring developers. Like, it's great that you get this perspective, but don't overcomplicate your projects. I actually want to make the message like, keep your projects simple, focus on the stacks that are marketable in your area, but also like, start considering the user. I think like a message for aspiring developers is it's okay to like be a little bit more problem focused before you jump right into the code. I think a lot of companies would appreciate that. And sometimes that training, that mindset, for me at least, was instilled a little bit more once I finally worked at startups. I had no idea like how to even structure that until I got the experience. So that's why I love startups. That's how much I would take from it with aspiring developers, or just keep this in your back pocket for when you do get more experience. For developers that do want to make that transition, which I know a lot of developers do, like a lot more than I thought. I even did a poll on LinkedIn as well. A lot of developers would love to branch off from their full-time positions, but they want their product to be impactful. They want to be able to provide value, and they want to make sure that they can, as much as they can, validate that idea and that business model, and make sure they're not just going to quit their job without any sort of plan or confidence in their product. So what I'd love, anyone in the comments, let me know. We touched on so many different topics. If you are considering branching off and building your product, building a business out of it, I would love to explore these ideas in depth more. We could even come up with, now that I'm going to listen to this again, but now that I'm starting to like shift my mindset a little bit, I think it'd be really cool to come up with videos like step by step and go into more depth and maybe provide more examples. Because if I had more examples with you, like even just the example I spit out, you both did a great job of just honestly helping me with my own product. Maybe that's a little bit selfish, but you did a great job of just like jumping in once you had at least a nugget of an idea and got me to think about some questions. So if you want to see more videos like this, definitely let me know. I think it's time for our outros. Garima, if people wanted to reach out to you, where could they reach you?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm available, so they can connect with me, shoot me a DM, and I'll answer the questions that they have.
Okay, that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, yeah, let me know what you thought of this. I think we can go into depth with a lot of these subjects, but I want to hear your ideas. and I'm going to think about this a bit more. So hope you enjoyed. Garima, Shelby, thanks so much for coming on. Stick around for a couple minutes, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.